also a really important spot here in Berlin. Here we had a border crossing between East Berlin and West Berlin. So this neighborhood, that's Berlin-Mitte, the center, where we came from, and on this side we have Kreuzberg. So we have the Soviet Union there and the Americans here. And now, more generally, this is a hotspot of the Cold War because the US and the Soviet Union are facing each other in Germany, they're facing each other in Berlin, and then in Berlin, this is the border crossing between the Russian sector and the American sector. And the Allies had an agreement that soldiers from all Allied forces could visit the sectors of the other Allied forces. So American soldiers could go across the border, drive around through East Berlin and come back in the evening. And similarly, the Russian soldiers could go through West Berlin. And of course the same with the French and the British. And so every day you had soldiers crossing in both ways here. And this worked fine, and then suddenly in 1961, in October, just a little bit after the wall starts to be built, the East German police rejects a couple of diplomats and high-ranking military members from the US. And they tell them, you guys can come in, but you have to wear your uniform. Before that, you could also come in civilian clothing. And so it was also just normal for example, American soldiers to put on their civilian clothes and just go to the opera in East Berlin at night. But now suddenly the East German police says you have to go back. And this is a big move because there's a lot of tension generally, and now suddenly the Soviet Union is trying to change things a little bit. And so the Americans react very, very heavily to this, and they sent actually tanks to the checkpoint here. The picture that's mostly associated with each other with guns loaded, and tensions are running high. There's a lot of phone calls going on between Moscow and Washington, but they find a diplomatic solution to this. Eventually the US accepts the new status quo that the soldiers have to wear their uniform. And eventually the Russians withdraw one tank, and then the US withdraws one tank, and so on and so forth. But yeah, together with the Cuban Missile Crisis, this is one of these really tense moments in the Cold War. And we're in 1961 now, so at this point it's very clear that both parties have a nuclear bomb. So yeah, also because blocs were facing each other anyway in Berlin, people thought, okay, if the Third World War is going to begin, it's probably going to begin here. And this was probably the moment that came closest to it. In the picture you can see a hut, and you see a replica of the hut over there. And also you can see a sign, and that's this sign over there. Yeah, and it just says in the Russian, English, German and French, it says you're leaving the American sector.
Namaste.